where helping that person had positive effects, the case for empathy would be solid. But the world is not a simple place. Often, very often, it will argue the action that empathy motivates. It's not what is morally right. Most laboratory studies don't tap this complexity. The experiments are designed to measure the effects of empathy in terms of some action that is plainly good. More helping, more cooperating, more kindness towards an individual who plainly needs help. But there is one significant exception. A clever study done by C. Daniel Batson and his colleagues. Now Batson has defended the empathy altruism hypothesis, the idea that empathy motivates the helping of others, but he does not claim that empathy inevitably has positive consequences. As he puts it, empathy-induced altruism is neither moral nor immoral, it is amoral. To explore this, he set up a situation in which empathy pushed people toward an answer that most people would believe, upon consideration, is the wrong one. He told his subjects about the charitable organization called the Quality Life Foundation that worked to make the final years of terminally ill children more comfortable. The subjects were then told that they would hear interviews with individual children on the waiting list for treatment. Subjects in the low empathy condition were told, while you are listening to this interview, try to take an objective perspective towards what is described. Try not to get caught up in how the children who is interviewed feels. Just remain objective and detached. And those in high empathy conditions were told, try to imagine how the child who is interviewed feels about what has happened and how it has affected this child's life. Try to feel the full impact of what this child has been through and how he or she feels as a result. The interview was with a girl named Sherry Summers, a very brave bride, 10 years old. Her painful terminal illness was described in detail, and she talked about how she would love to get the service of the Quality Life Foundation. Subjects were then asked whether they wanted to fill out a special request to move Sherry up the waiting list. It was made clear that if the requests were granted, it would mean that the other children higher up in priority would have to wait longer to get care. The effect was strong. 3/4 of the subjects in the high empathy condition wanted to move her up, as compared to 1/3 in the low empathy condition. Empathy's effects then weren't in the direction of increasing an interest in justice. Rather, they increased special concern for the target of the empathy, despite the cost to others. This sort of effect takes us back to the metaphor of empathy as a spotlight. The metaphor captures a feature of empathy that its fans are quick to emphasize how it makes visible the suffering of others, makes their troubles real, salient and concrete. From the gloom, something is seen, someone who believes we wouldn't help if it weren't for empathy might see its spotlight nature as its finest aspect. But the metaphor also illustrates empathy weakness. A spotlight picks out a certain space to illuminate and leaves the darkness. Its focus is narrow. What you see depends on where you choose to point the spotlight, so its focus is vulnerable to your biases. Empathy is not the only facet of our moral lives that has a spotlight nature. Emotions such as anger, guilt, shame, and gratitude are similar. But not all psychological processes are limited in this way. We can engage in reasoning, including moral reasoning, that it's more abstract. We can make decisions based on considerations of costs and benefits or through appealing to general principles. Presumably this is what the people who choose not to move Sherry Summers up the list were doing. They weren't zooming in on her, but rather taking a more distant perspective. Now one might worry that this less emotional perspective is too cold and impersonal. Maybe the right metaphor for this type of impartial reasoning is the ugly illumination of a fluorescent light. We'll get to that. My point here is just that the limitations of empathy are not inevitable. Because of its spotlight properties, reliance on empathy can lead to perverse consequences that no rational person would endorse. You can see this in some fascinating psychological experiments. In some studies, subjects were given $10 and then told that they had the opportunity to give as much as they wanted to other individuals who had nothing. All of this was anonymous. The other individual was just identified by a number, which the subject drew at random. The twist was that some of the subjects drew the number and then decided how much to give, while other subjects decided how much to give and then drew the number. Weirdly, people who drew the number first gave far more, 60% more, than those who decided first, presumably because the prior drawing of the number helped them to imagine a specific person without money, as opposed to just some abstract individual. In other study by the same research team, people were asked to donate money to Habitat for Humanity to help build a home for a family. They were told either that the family has been selected or that the family will be selected. This subtle variation again made a difference. The subjects in the first condition gave a lot more, presumably because of the shift between a concrete target and a more abstract one. Other studies compare how we respond to the suffering of one versus the suffering of many. Psychologists asked some subjects how much money they would give to help develop a drug that would save the life of one child, and asked others how much they would give to save 8 children. People would give roughly the same in both cases, but when a third group of subjects were told the child's name and shown her picture, the donations shot up. Now there were greater donations to the one than to the 8. All of this laboratory effect can be seen as manifestations of what's been called the identifiable victim effect. Thomas Schelling, writing 40 years ago, puts it like this. Let a 6-year-old girl with brown hair need thousands of dollars for an operation that will prolong her life until Christmas, and the post office will be swamped with nickels and dimes to save her. But let it be reported that without a sales tax, the hospital facilities of Massachusetts will deteriorate and cause a barely perceptible increase in preventable deaths. Not many will drop a tear or reach for other checkbooks. This effect also illustrates something more general about our natural sentiment, which is that they are innumerate. If our concern is driven by thoughts of the suffering of specific individuals, then it sets up a perverse situation in which the suffering of one can matter more than the suffering of 1,000. To get a sense of the innumerate nature of our feelings, imagine reading that 200 people just died in an earthquake in a remote country. How do you feel? Now imagine that you just discovered that the actual number of deaths was 2,000. Do you now feel 10 times worse? Do you feel any worse? I doubt it. Indeed, one individual can matter more than 100, because a single individual can evoke feelings in a way that a multitude cannot. Stalin has been quoted as saying, "One death is a tragedy, 1,000,000 is a statistic." And Mother Teresa once said, "If I look at the mass, I will never act. If I look at the one, I will." To the extent that we can recognize that the numbers are significant, then when it comes to moral decisions, it's because of reason. It's because of reason, not sentiment. One problem with spotlights is their narrow focus. Another is that they only light up what you point at them. They are vulnerable to bias. The neuroscience research that we talked about earlier provided many illustrations of empathy bias. Brain areas that correspond to the experience of empathy are sensitive to whether someone is a friend or a foe, part of one's group or part of an opposite group. Empathy is sensitive to whether the person is pleasing to look at or disgusting, and much else. Just as with the identifiable victim effect, we can see this bias in the real world. Think about some of the events that have happened, the sentiments of Americans over the last many decades. There are girls in Wales. In 1949, Kathy Fiscus, a 3-year-old girl, fell into a well in San Marino, California, and the entire nation was seized with concern. 4 decades later, America was transfixed by the plight of Jessica McClure, baby Jessica, the 18 months old who fell into a narrow well in Texas in October 1987, triggering a faked 5-hour rescue operation. Everybody in America became godmothers and godfathers of Jessica while this was going on. President Reagan remarked, larger scale events can also engage us, so long as we can find identifiable victims in the crowd. So we resonate to certain tragedies, disasters, and great crimes, such the tsunami of 2004, Hurricane Katrina the year after, Hurricane Irene in 2011, Hurricane Sandy in 2012, and of course the attack of the Twin Towers on September 11, 2001. Or the example that began this book, when 20 children These are all serious cases, but why these and not others? It's surely not their significance in any objective sense. Paul Slovic discusses the immense focus on Natalie Holloway, an 18-year-old American student who went missing on vacation in Aruba and was believed to have been abducted and murdered. He points out that when Holloway went missing, the story of her plight took up far more television time than the concurrent genocide in Darfur, I guess, I don't know. He notes that each day more than 10 times the number of people who died in Hurricane Katrina died because of preventable diseases, and more than 13 times as many die from malnutrition. Plainly then, the salience of these cases doesn't reflect an assessment of the extent of suffering or their global importance or of the extent to which it's possible for us to help. Rather, it reflects our natural biases in who to care about. We are fascinated by the plight of young children, particularly those who look like us and come from our community. In general, we care most about people who are similar to us in attitude, in language, in appearance, and we will always care most of all about events that pertain to us and people we love. Adam Smith made this point in 1790 using a now famous example. He asked us to support that everyone in China was killed in an earthquake. Then he imagined how a man of humanity in Europe would react. He would, I imagine, first of all, express very strongly his sorrow for the misfortune of that unhappy people. He would make many melancholy reflections upon the precariousness of human life and the vanity of all the labors of man which could thus be annihilated in a moment. And when all this fine philosophy was over, when all these human sentiments had been once fairly expressed, he would pursue his businesses or his pleasure, take his response or his diversion, with the same ease and tranquility as if no such accident happened. Smith then makes a comparison to the emotional response evoked by a more personal event,